Well, the first part of the story for me was that George Miller wanted to play. I mean, that's a huge part of all of our story here. So anything that he was going to be presenting, I suppose, even though you're right, it's different from his other films. It's really not. It's kind of the same vibe. It's the same commitment to a kind of fantasy. So when I first read the script, I was reading a George Miller film, a script for a George Miller film. Idris and I met once at a party, which is a very sort of rare sentence for me to say because I don't go to many parties. But I met him at a party, and we exchanged that sort of very banal statement, "Oh, it would be lovely to work together one day." And I thought, never in a month of Sundays, but I'll say it anyway. And then several years later, when George mentioned making this film, he immediately popped into my mind, and he was already in George's mind. And so we really met here. It's been a complete dream for me from start to finish. I mean, in the first case, I am a huge admirer of George's cinema, and he, in so many ways, makes a cinema that I respond to like a child. I mean, I am very, very pissed off, like most of my generation, that we never got to work with Hitchcock. But you know what? There's George Miller, and I now can call him a colleague, and that's a huge deal for me. But to work with him inside one of his magic boxes and see how he makes it is absolutely mind-blowing and much more than I expected. What I didn't expect was that all that work and all that rigor and all that mastery means that he's unbelievably fresh and free when you're actually shooting. So you're following this incredibly, it feels like a very, I won't say strict code, but a very established code. As you say, he works with a storyboard, he works with a shot list that's, been there for a while. You can tell it's sort of, got yellowing pages. But even working with that long established thing that he's figured out for years he's going to do, on the day, at that moment, if you feel like saying, do you know what about that? He's there for it. And he'll go, try it. Why not? And very often, when we've done that, that's what he's gone for. So it's as if all that work, and I have experienced this, a filmmaker I'm privileged to also call a friend and collaborator is Bong Joon-ho, who works in a similar way in that he also works with a storyboard. In fact, Bong Joon-ho works with the editor sitting beside him. So you know exactly what you're working to. And George is similar in that way, that he gives you such a structure that you're completely relaxed and free. The shape of the film, the sort of trajectory, the arrow's journey of the film is to a certain extent about evolution, about human evolution, social evolution, I would say. And in particular in relation to the circumstances of women's life, yes, I think that's very accurate, and it's not a high note in the film, but it's there, and it's there to be picked up on. And it is true that Alethea is the latest, she's not the last, she's the latest in the chain of all these women whose stories are about fulfillment, because the film is about desire. What are your 3 wishes? What do you desire? She's invested herself in being content, in being detached from emotion, love stories. She says she finds emotion through story. So her husband complains that she can't be sort of compassionate with his feelings, which is why he goes off with somebody else. She goes, okay, I'm going to make a thing of that. I'm going to become that person who's just an observer of other people's lives, a narrator of other people's lives, but I'm not really going to get involved. So she's got this detachment. So when she meets the Djinn, and the Djinn says, what are your desires? She says, dude, I don't have any. And she's really proud of that. She thinks that's a great position, to not have any desires. I think her evolution in the course of the film is that she readdresses that, and she evolves. She transforms, in fact. She's on this precipice of being, the Djinn brings her to the end of that particular line of living this sort of self-sufficient, unemotional, detached life. And he opens up the possibility of her changing and living an emotional life, taking a risk, taking a massive risk. She learns that you can't control somebody else's life. You are only in charge of your own. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the risk and the paraglide, but move on and go back to contentment, but be emotional with it. I think that's what she really learns. She learns a way of collating emotion with intellect, attachment with detachment, and she invites a kind of mess into her life at a certain point where it's all become quite clean and tidy. This could be read, this film, as the story of a woman who sees things. And the Djinn she sees the Djinn. Now there's a whole question for the audience about whether anybody else can, and we play little games with that. But it is possible that Alethea has brought up the Djinn. I think she thinks that she might have brought him up. So my point being, he's the Djinn that she needs him to be.